Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Dory Clark, and this is our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. Our guest this week is author Sam Horn. She is the author of the new book, Talking on Eggshells. She's also the author of perhaps the all-time greatest named book, Tung Fu. She's the master of titles. Sam Horn, great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Dory. I'm really looking forward to sharing some examples and insights with your viewers.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sam. So, all right, Talking on Eggshells. This is a fantastic title. I noticed your cover quote. It's from John Mackey. He's, of course, the founder of Whole Foods. It says, "This book is the course correct for today's cancel culture." And of course, I think this is an interesting topic and kind of an interesting line into diversity issues because it has become so complicated, so polarized these days. So many times, especially when it comes to issues around politics or identity or things like that, people do feel like they're talking on eggshells, that they have to be incredibly careful or they might end up canceled. Why is it that things have become so hard? Has it always been this bad, or are we just perceiving it wrong, or is it actually harder?
You know, it's a wonderful question, Dory. It's Martina Navratilova said, labels are for cans, not for people. And, and yet these days it seems like we're labeling a lot of people. And if they're different, they're wrong. And we don't want to have anything to do with them, or we tell them how wrong they are, and neither helps. So unless people are driving, I hope they get a piece of paper and they put a vertical line down the center, because you and I are both proactive and prescriptive, right? So we're going to share some ways that we can be a force for good in a world that is often divisive. So put a vertical line down the middle of the paper, and on the top of the left-hand column, put words to lose, and over on the right, put words to use. And let's talk about divisive right now. Is that, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was interviewed, and a reporter said, "I don't understand it. You go out to the opera with Judge Scalia and you are on opposite sides of the political spectrum. How do you do that?" Dory, she said 6 words. You ready? "We are different. We are one." So over on the left, put different, and over on the right, put one. And do we have time for me to share a 60-second story about what can we do if a family member, a long-term friend, has a polar opposite opinion, what we can do?
Please do. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I had monthly phone calls with a dear friend for more than 20 years. She was an icon in the speaking industry. And I was a little shocked a few years ago when she casually mentioned that she thought the president at the time was the best president we ever had. Well, Dory, I thought the opposite of that. And at the end of the phone call, I didn't know if we'd ever speak again because we were so divided about this issue. I was very fortunate because I remembered growing up in a small town in Southern California. We had dry riverbeds that had quicksand in it. Well, now, wait a minute. Did our parents forbid us from riding horses because we might get sucked into that quicksand? No, we steered clear of the quicksand. So my friend and I realized she is not going to change my mind. I am not going to change her mind. We have more in common than we have in conflict. And we are not going to throw away a 25-year friendship because we differ about this one issue. So we declared that a quicksand conversation.
I think that's actually a really interesting point, Sam. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Obviously, I mean, there's certain things like let's put them to the side. Let's just not go there. I imagine there's probably some people who might say, "Yeah, but Sam, I mean, there's got to be, a red line. Some people, it's just, you find out they're, whatever, they're a terrible anti-Semite or something like that, and it's just, no, I can't possibly countenance it. It actually does eradicate even the good things. I can't be seen to tolerate such a thing." Do you feel like there are some things that are just so extreme that you can't bridge that divide? And if so, how do you know what those are as compared to the things where it's like, you know what, that's your preference. You have a preference. I have a preference.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Dory, because I think everyone is dealing that. When is something a deal breaker, right? And there are criteria in the book about should I stay or should I go. There's a list of questions we can ask. Once again, will I change their mind? Will I change mine? Is this toxic to the point that by continuing a relationship with them, whether it's a personal relationship or professional, that is construed as me supporting that belief? And I do not want to go on record, or I do not want others to believe that I support that belief. So there's a whole criteria of questions that can help us make an informed decision about, all right, should it just be a quicksand conversation? We have more in common than in conflict. We're just going to steer clear. Or no, this is such a big issue that to remain in a relationship with this person compromises everything I believe to be true and good in the world. And I will choose. I love it. As Thornton Wilder said, sometimes it is time to leave, even when there's no particular place to go. Sometimes it is time to leave.
Yeah, really, really good point. We're here with Sam Horn. Her new book is called Talking on Eggshells: Soft Skills for Hard Conversations. This is Dory Clark, and this is Better, our weekly Newsweek interview show. So, Sam, ultimately, I mean, this is a book about better communication strategies and how to talk to people more effectively. I love it because each chapter is sort of a use case, right? So, like, what do you do if the people, and it's this sort of list of all kinds of maladies that they might have. What if they're a bully, or what if it seems like they don't care, or whatever. But, how would you say that this factors into to diversity issues? I mean, certainly people might have different sort of political views, but I imagine that it may kind of tie in terms of questions of how to communicate and people feeling included or not included. Is that right? And how do you think about inclusion in terms of being a communication issue?
So this is once again a wonderful practical situation. What can we say when people are complaining or blaming us for something that we didn't do, or accusing us of something that's not true? So here's a situation, and then we'll talk about how we can do this at work, at home. Is that I have an 84-year-old Aunt Kay. She volunteers at a hospital 5 days a week, and she did this even during COVID. And I asked what it was like. She said it was stressful. I said, well, what's an example where someone was taking out their stress or their anger on you? Dory, she didn't even have to think about it. She said there was a woman that ran into the ER holding her phone up. And she said, I just got a text from my daughter. She was in an accident. She's in the ER. I need to see her. Well, Kate called the ER. Someone was already with the daughter. Now, you may remember the rules during COVID is that only one patient, and visitor a day, right? So when she delivered the news to the mother, she couldn't see her daughter. The woman lost it. She's screaming, sobbing at my Aunt Kay. Now, over on the left-hand column, put the word impatient. Because if someone is angry at us, yelling at us, it's easy to say, how rude, don't blame me, I didn't make the rules, this isn't fair. All those reactions make it worse. Instead, over on the right, Aunt Kay said 4 words. You know what they were? How would I feel? How would I feel if my daughter went in the ER and I couldn't get in to see her? And it moved her from impatience to empathy, from contempt to compassion, and it gave her the incentive to turn "there's nothing I can do" into "let me see if there's something I can do." She called the ER back. She said, "Who is with the daughter?" Dory, it was the Uber driver who had brought the young woman in. She was able to explain the situation, thank him, he left, and the mother was able to get in with the daughter. So see, when it comes to inclusivity or DEI issues, is it so often we think, this is so wrong, this is so unfair, how can they say this? All reactive, all makes it worse. No, how would I feel if I were in their shoes? And we may not agree with it, and we may not like it, we may understand it, and it gives us the compassion and the incentive to empathize instead of be frustrated with them.
Yeah, that's such a good point. We're here with Sam Horn. She's the author of Talking on Eggshells. This is Better, our weekly Newsweek interview show. I am Dory Clark. And so, Sam, I think one of the themes that I picked up on in terms of reading reading through your book was essentially ways, I guess you could say, to sort of regain your power or your agency, because there are a lot of things that people do and you just can't control it one way or another. They do a rude thing, or at least a thing that seems rude, or they do this, they do that. Nothing you're going to do is changing it. And so a lot of it is about what are the things within your sphere of control. How do you think about that and about the questions of agency in terms of communications?
First, I'm so glad you brought this up. Amy Poehler said, I get a little itchy if I don't have some kind of control. And face it, most of us get a little itchy if we don't have some kind of control, because that's what a conflict is, battle for control. So let's talk about what to do if somebody accuses us of something that's not true, or somebody says something we don't agree with, we take exception to. Here's a quick example. I'm speaking at a women's leadership conference. A woman in the Q&A put her hand up and she said, why are women so catty to each other? I tell you, Dory, I'd heard that question a lot, and I decided it was time to Don Draper it. Don Draper from the TV show Mad Men said, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. Over on the left, put deny. If someone says, you women are so emotional, don't deny it, because if you say, we're not emotional, now we are. If someone says, you don't care about DEI, yes, I do. Now we're arguing with people about whether we care about DEI. Over on the right, redirect it. Is go on record with what you do believe instead of what you don't. Instead of denying it, redirect it. So I said, you know what I found? Women are real supporters of each other. In fact, I wouldn't have this speaking engagement if it's so say what you do believe, what you do want. And there's another way you can do this. If someone says you don't care about DEI or you don't care about your customers, instead of like denying or defending, say these 4 words. What do you mean? Because they may say, well, you all have white men on your panels. There's no women of diversity, and there's no people from different cultures. The real issue. Now we can address that instead of reacting to the accusation. You don't care about your customers. Why do you say that? Well, I left 4 messages and no one's called back. Do you see how by redirecting, we actually get to the real issue and we can address that instead of reacting to their attack?
Those are really good points. Thank you, Sam. So, one feature that we have every week in Better is that we have our interviewee nominate someone to be the Better Leader of the Week. And this is someone that you believe exemplifies the principles of positively advancing diversity and inclusion. And Sam, your nominee was a director at Johnson & Johnson, and her name is Jennifer Treglia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Correct.
So tell us about Jennifer. First of all, congratulations, Jennifer. And second of all, please tell us about her and why she is your nominee.
Here's why I believe that Jen Treglia is a walking, talking role model of inclusivity. Desmond Tutu said, we've got to stop pulling people out of the river. We've got to go upstream and find out where they're falling in. That's what Jen does. She's not reactive, she's proactive. She is constantly mentoring people in Johnson & Johnson and teaching them what we call ISA, interpersonal situation awareness, which is how to read the room. Because if we can read the room, we can lead the room, right? So if we walk into a room and we're going to recommend something and we can tell that people are distracted, what we can do to get their attention is to say, I know you've got other priorities and these meetings normally take an hour. I've distilled my recommendation into 5 minutes. Rock and roll, let's go. Guess what? Their eyebrows are going to go up and maybe they're going to listen because you saw and read the writing on the wall and you prevented something from going wrong. And Jen Treglia teaches this nuance of paying attention, noticing what's happening, and then preventing something from going wrong instead of just, as Elvis said, when things go wrong, don't go with them. She gets ahead of them.
That's so fantastic. Well, Sam, that raises a good question. I mean, you have written many books about effective communication and, being able to really sort of take back control in a positive way around how we're getting our ideas out there. I'm actually curious, how did you learn these skills? The subtitle of Talking on Eggshells is, as you said, it's soft skills for hard conversations. So how did you come to the knowledge of the right way of approaching these things, and why did this become your thing? Why did this become your mission to convey it to other people?
Thanks. That's for asking about my origin story, right, Dory? Is that I grew up in a Cold War. No, now that Cold War one in our home is my dad was emotionally distant and my mom was emotionally wounded. And they were good people. They taught my brother and sister and I to do the right thing. It's just that they had so many hurts between them. They didn't know where to begin, so they didn't begin. There would just be hours of silence. And then I was in a relationship with a bully, and I tiptoed around this person because I never knew what was going to set him off. And I learned what it was like to talk on eggshells. And I thought, this is the irony. We learn math and science and history. We don't learn what to say when people are at an impasse. We don't learn what to say when someone is belittling you. And I thought, somebody's got to do something about this. I thought, I'm as much as somebody as anybody. I'm going to do something about it. So between Tung Fu and Talking on Eggshells and my other books, I'm on a mission about providing what can you say in these character building situations so we can handle them at the moment instead of thinking of the perfect response on the way home.
I love that. We're here with Sam Horn, author of Talking on Eggshells. So, Sam, you toward the end of your book, you actually have a whole a whole section about I like the term you had for it. It was what to do when the other person doesn't care what's fair. Because so often we think about effective communication, we think, all right, if I can just calm myself down, if I can state my feelings in a rational way and say, gosh, Sam, it kind of hurt my feelings when blah, 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 blah. We assume that in most cases, the person will be like, oh my gosh, Dory, I had no idea. But the equation kind of fritzes out when the other person really doesn't care. So can you give us some thoughts or some insights about dealing with someone who is, I guess you could say, an unfair player in this equation?
See, hopefully this book is very practical. It's not Pollyanna. We start off with everyday situations. Someone is upset, someone's late, and then as we graduate through the book, we talk about what you've just brought up, which is, I think that 95% of people really do care what's fair. They want a win-win. They want to cooperate. The other 5%, narcissists, bullies, verbal abusers, controllers, manipulators, they don't care what's fair. They don't want a win-win. They want to win, and they do not want to cooperate. They want to control. And Dory, what you just brought up is a very sad truth, is that for these people, our kindness becomes our Achilles heel because they pervert it and they use it against us. So I don't think we want to become a bully, and we don't want to be bullied. And I knew there had to be a third way. So what I'm going to suggest flies in the face of everything we've been taught. As you said, Dory, over on the left, we've been taught to use I replies, right? I don't think that's fair. I don't like that tone of voice. I don't like to. And people with a conscience will self-reflect and self-correct. They'll say, I'm sorry, I was having a bad day. It wasn't fair to take it out on you. Guess what? 5%ers don't reflect and they don't self-correct. So we need to do the you. You back off. You clean up your language. You take your hand off my shoulder. Because with 5%ers who don't care what's fair, if we use I replies, it's double jeopardy because we're making it about our reaction to their behavior. No, keep the attention where it belongs, which is on their inappropriate behavior.
Ooh, I like it. All right, so we're going counterintuitive here, but you have to if the people are not playing by the established set of rules. So that's a really great point. Now, Sam, one of the things that you talk about in the spirit of using language more effectively for inclusion, you've talked about the importance of making people feel part of a group rather than separate or apart from a group. And clearly this ties into diversity issues as well. I think most people want to create a diverse team, workplace, et cetera. They would like to make people feel included. What are some strategies, maybe just one or two top things that you can think about that would be helpful in terms of helping people feel part of a group?
I'll always be grateful to my dad, Dory, because I was editor of my college newspaper. And forgive me, I was young. And, I would often, people would turn in their columns and I would redline them and edit them, or I would write them myself. Dory, I'm so sorry. And of course, what happened? People started quitting. People started leaving the newspaper, right? Because I was a little Reese Witherspoon. And so my dad said, Sam, whether or not people support a decision depends on whether it's being done to them or by them. And I learned a valuable lesson about inclusivity. Now we're in the middle of summer, so 60-second story. I shared that story one time in a leadership workshop, and this gentleman, he went like this. He said, I wish I'd known this last summer. I said, what happened? He said, well, my oldest son is going off this was in Hawaii, to the mainland. I figured if we were going to do that driving vacation we talked about all our life, it had to be them. I got a Winnebago. We all fly to California. We get our Winnebago. We start driving, and we're not even 10 minutes into the drive. When are we going to get to Disneyland? Oh, we're not going to Disneyland. It's so hot. The lines are so long. How much farther? All that. He said, we get to the Grand Canyon, and I can't find anywhere to park that Winnebago. He said, I finally park under a no parking. They can haul the thing for all I'm concerned. We walk over it. My youngest daughter looks at it and looks up at me and says, we missed Disneyland for the big ditch. He said, and the next day, after all the complaining, he said, back then I took my AAA map, I tore it in half, I throw it up in the air, and I said, I give up. You plan the vacation. He said, that's what we did. We divvied it up. It's like daughter had a day, mom had a day. And on your day, you could do anything you want as long as we got to our destination by a certain time and under the budget. And he said, I finally realized why they weren't enjoying their vacation. It wasn't their vacation. It was my vacation. And, when it comes to inclusivity at work or on sports teams or at home, it's like, to the degree we say, so what do you think? What are your suggestions? What are your recommendations? Is to the degree people feel a part of the group instead of apart from the group.
Such an important point. That's fantastic. We have been here talking with Sam Horn. She is the author of many books. Her most recent is Talking on Eggshells, Soft Skills for Hard Conversations. And if you want to learn more about Sam, just go to her website. It's samhorn.com. Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it, Dory. I hope this has been inspiring and people can use these tips to deal with difficult people without becoming one themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sam, and see you all next week.